You're listening to the Fit Bottom Girls podcast, the only podcast for active, athletic, and adventurous women and those who aspire to be. We've got your back as you navigate the ups and the downs of motherhood, midlife, and menopause. I'm your host, Allison Hylett, here to remind you that female isn't fragile. I'm a strength, conditioning, and nutrition coach who's trained hundreds of women to achieve their goals to get fit, lift heavy, go the distance, and feel like a badass in every area of their lives. Each week, you'll hear from me and some of our awesome guests as we educate and empower you during each stage of your fitness journey, whether you're already crushing it, fighting to get back out there, or starting from day one. So friends, let's get into it. Welcome, Erin. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Allison.
You are here today to talk about rest as fuel. And even though this interview has been scheduled for months now, I feel like it just could not have come at a better time. Aside from the fact that we're less than 2 months into 2025 and it's been extra wild this year, I feel like the demand on us to be constantly busy, constantly productive, and constantly engaged at all times has continued to just grow exponentially. And as a result, I'm noticing as a coach that my clients, myself, our batteries are draining faster and we're living on the edge of, or perhaps even in, a perpetual state of burnout, which just further is dragging people down that rabbit hole of high anxiety and poor sleep and poor focus, poor eating habits, and just generally declining well-being. I am relishing this chance to talk with you today about taking it back to basics and really dialing in the rest and the recovery side of the equation so that we're not stuck in this constant drive to stay alert and stay engaged every minute of the day that's draining us and robbing us of our quality of life. Because as you say, it's all about balance. And my goodness, things feel really unbalanced right now.
Indeed. Yeah, absolutely. Rest and recovery have, it just feels like never more timely.
Yeah. And I really just want to dig in and start with the elephant in the room, that rest can sometimes feel inaccessible. And I often see my own clients' eyes just sort of glaze over when I talk about rest and restoration. And often they'll say to me things like, I can't relax, I can't settle, I can't calm down. And I think that often stems from people's misconceptions about what is rest. And one of those being that we should just be able to rest and relax. But in reality, it's a practice. It's not something that comes naturally to all of us. We have to work at it. We sometimes have to suck at it. We have to learn ways to pave the way for rest. And so much of our modern lifestyles are working against us. So it takes time and practice to relearn how to really get there.
Absolutely. I mean, balance is a practice. Rest is a practice. It is the most readily available and yet underutilized tool for well-being universally. And as you said, I think there's this misconception that it is not available to us. It's not accessible. And I really think that stems from just the fact that we live in a world that asks us to do too much all the time, leaving little to no time to make sense of any of it, no time to integrate or absorb or process what has happened. And so we're kind of stuck in that mode, on that gear, on that frequency. And so it feels like nothing else is available. We can't make the choice to rest.
Yeah. And I notice for myself, you're a writer. I do a lot of writing. We work in this field that has us creating content for a population. And every time I sit at my desk and I'm like, where has my creativity gone? Like, I can't come up with any ideas. Everything I do sounds stupid. Always when I take a step back and I look at what's happening in this moment where I feel like my creativity is just gone, it's because I'm not resting enough, because I'm overloading my schedule. I look at like the way that I do my planner as like time blocks, and it's like everything is bumped up against it. And it's like every minute of the day has been optimized to increase productivity. And yet there's no empty space. And that seems to be this big intersection that I notice in my life is when I don't have that time to process, I don't have space to think and let my mind wander, I start to lose that ability to be creative in a space for creativity.
Definitely. It's this feeling of like being squeezed and there is no space, I think is so prevalent. And it sucks because the reality is that deep thinking, deep work, creativity depend on space. They require spaciousness.
Mm.
And, in our pursuit of being so productive, we're actually hindering our ability to do our best work.
What are some of the other things that you think or see that people get wrong about rest and recovery?
I think another misconception is that rest happens automatically or by default when you're
Mm.
not working.
Yeah.
So I'm done with my workday. I'm going to kick back with a glass of wine, just assuming that when you're, not working, that the work stops
Yeah.
and that you are automatically kind of moving into relaxation. And, it doesn't work like this, does
No.
it? And if you've ever struggled to wind down or you feel, that lingering stiffness, tension, whatever word describes it to you, or you're struggling to sleep, your mind is still busy, just can't seem to kind of shut it down. You know what I'm talking about. And that's because we're so geared up and we're sprinting so hard all the time that it's really difficult to shift gears. We're so good at going 0 to 60, but it doesn't naturally automatically go in the other direction when we say, I'm done working now, or we write rest day in our calendar, or whatever other lip service we might be paying to our recovery. So the reality really is that rest is a skill to cultivate and practice, just like you would train a muscle. You lift weights, you get stronger. Rest a bit more, you become more efficient and effective in your ability to make that transition from work to rest, effort to ease, to really calming your nervous system. And that is such a valuable, crucial skill in today's world.
Yeah. I love that you brought that up because just because you're not physically sitting at your desk staring at your laptop doesn't mean you're resting. Yeah, you're stepping away from work, but that's not necessarily restoring your system or returning you to baseline.
Absolutely. And it fascinates me how, like on a Monday, when everyone's asking each other, oh, how was your weekend? And most people are so busy and will list all the things they did and so tired. It was so full on. Most of us wind down the week tired, after a full busy week. And then we fully overschedule our weekend. And then on a Monday, we're all standing around complaining about it. And I think we need to ask ourselves the questions. Are you mad or are you proud? Like, what is it? Is it bad or is it something that's actually you feel good about it? It's just really, I think it's a funny thing. I keep my weekends pretty spacious as a practice for our family. And when people ask me that question, I usually genuinely say that we rested and we chilled over the weekend because that's what we do. And I am met with so much discomfort, like visual discomfort when I respond in that way because people don't relate to that because people don't rest and they don't prioritize that during times when in theory, rest is available. You can do less. You can take it easy. I think there's just a feeling of everyone else is so busy. We wear our busyness like a badge of honor. And if I'm not super busy and a bit stressed out, it must mean I'm not doing enough, right? So I think that I like to just suggest the alternative and share how I approach that in the hopes that maybe that will help others to feel like they might have permission to do the same. Not that you need permission,
Right.
to pause. The only person who can give you that permission is yourself.
Yep. I think it is important that we normalize that approach too. My life is really boring on the weekends on purpose. I just try to really keep it low key and not schedule a lot on the weekend. My weeks are so high intensity that the weekend really is about creating that balance. But we look at what people are posting on social media and they're with their friends and they're out at brunch and they're shopping and they're doing all of these things. And it just feels like if we're not doing that, we're, like you said, we're not doing enough. We're not being out there in the world. We're not contributing. We're not enjoying our lives. We're like living it. But I see it in people's faces when they're like, what'd you do this weekend? I'm like, nothing, literally nothing. Like I just laid on the couch with my dogs and read. And they're like, how do you even do that? Like, how do you pull that off? Don't you get bored? Isn't that uncomfortable? And like in the beginning it was, but it's a skill. And now I'm really skilled at it.
Well done. You have to work through that initial discomfort that accompanies doing anything different. Doing anything outside of your usual frame of reference is likely to bring some discomfort along with it. And, we just amazingly, bravely take on so much. It is just incredible. What if you approach your rest and recovery with the same vigor? Like Just
Yes. Yes.
that's really something to consider, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you're spot on with a lot of the discomfort is bubbling up from how much of our identity we tie up in our busyness and our productivity and optimizing every moment of the day. So, talking about what people are getting wrong about rest and recovery, you have written this book that we're going to talk about. And one of the things that I really love about the approach that you have in this book and in general is that people often think that rest needs to be something really long or potentially complicated, that they need to go somewhere else to an hour or 90-minute yoga class, or they need to go get a 90-minute massage. And there's really this misconception, I think, that it needs to be something that takes a lot of time. But what I've found, and I'm sure that you'll agree and perhaps elaborate on, is that the most potent rest practices for me have been the ones that I can do right where I am in a short amount of time. They just kind of allow me to come up for air and give me that quick reset so that I can carry on. They're really well built into my life in a way that is really accessible for me within the context of my life.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's all about rest for real. If your practice doesn't fit in your real life, it won't work. And yeah, going to a long restorative yoga class or having a spa day, that's all great, whenever you can create the time and have the resource for that. However, rest doesn't require anything formal or fancy. You don't need a lot of fancy kits, gadgets, gizmos. Your attention holds the greatest power to restore you in the moments when you truly need rest the most. So I think it's all about a little often. It's recognizing how you are and when you're starting to flag and responding in the moment with a contextual reset that meets you where you are. Well, I'm at the office and I am just like in a fog. Well, what can you do about it? Like rather than gritting your teeth and pushing through, what could you do in the moment to fuel yourself a bit more? And I don't mean going for another cup of coffee,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
There's so many things that we can do, small gestures to meet ourselves where we are in the moment. And I think that as we recognize and gain equity with these practices by using them often, we really start to feel the difference. And that's incredibly motivating to use our practices and use what's available to us anytime, anywhere.
When I have days where I have back-to-back calls, and I don't allow this to happen very often, but when it does happen, my meetings are often bumped up against each other, and I can feel the agitation starting to build. And as I close out one Zoom room and before I hit the next one to go in, it's just 3 deep, intentional breaths. And it makes such a big difference. Just that turning my attention and awareness to just this moment that's for me is really sometimes all that it takes. 3 deep intentional breaths is a way to really a way to maximize that time to get that recharge in the time that I have in the seat. It's just 3 deep breaths.
Yeah,
Simple.
I love that. I love that. And that's a perfect example of something that you can do in the moment when you feel like you have no time. And I think it's recognizing, well, really acknowledging that that matters. That makes a difference because we get so stuck on this idea that I don't have time. I need a whole hour or 30 minutes or whatever. You don't. And it's those like little rest, almost like little snacks, same way you reach for snacks, like reach
Yep.
for rest. And the example you just gave, I think transitions, points of transition throughout your day are a great place to look for rest, even whether it's between calls, meetings, or whether it's a transition like ending your workday and going to pick up your kids. For example, one of my most loved, valuable practices every day, at least 10 minutes before I need to go pick up my kids, because I'm usually the one that does that, I shut everything down and I put my legs up the wall or choose any other restorative posture that feels appealing, even if I feel like, oh, I just really need to finish this, or I'm feeling squeezed. But, it is a discipline, really, a practice that makes a world of difference because something is ending, something else is about to begin. And what about this space in between without actually putting a wedge in there and making that transition? It's like we're just constantly carrying this like wispiness of everything that's just happened. And that's why stress and tension just continue. All these moments of stress and tension that build up throughout our day, they just keep accumulating without creating that release valve for yourself. And that release valve can be 3 deep breaths. It can be 10 minutes of legs up the wall, whatever works for you where you are.
Yeah. And I love that too, because these transitions can often feel really abrupt. And one that I deal with and my clients a lot is the busyness of their day butted up against their sleep. So they basically just go all day until they collapse. And then like, why can't I sleep, or why is my sleep not restful? And well, there's a transition there that you just like butted busyness up to like 60 to 0. Can we like downshift perhaps, build a transition in there that would allow you to kind of pave the way for more restful sleep? Because this idea of taking all of that busyness and bumping it up against this, you're like you lay down in your bed and you're like, now go to sleep now. It's like, it doesn't work.
It doesn't work like that. It might be nice if it did, but it doesn't.
Yeah. If we had like a wake sleep switch, right, where you could just say, okay, go to sleep now. But it doesn't work like that. So I love that, looking for the transitions, because I feel like it's like we do sometimes need a little bit of a palate cleanser in between these moments of busyness, or switching gears from work life to home life, or from evening to bedtime, and building in those moments of restoration and rest as a precursor for the big rest every night that we need to get, is like training yourself to go into the place that you need to be able to access in order to sleep well. And if we're not ever practicing that downshift at all, it's always going to feel really abrupt, and like sleep is harder to get our hands on.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's just like the more you practice making that transition, the easier it will become. 100%. Yeah.
Hey, you. I wanted to press pause on this episode for a second to talk about your fitness goals. Those sweet dreams of being more active and feeling athletic and confident and doing epic, adventurous shit. Or maybe you just feel like you're getting older, because we're all getting older. And you, like me, never want to give up on carrying all the groceries into the house in one shot, or picking up that heavy Amazon box without worrying that you're going to throw your back out. I know you're busy. You're probably listening to this episode while multitasking. Oh yeah, I'm on to you. And the biggest thing that's stopping you from getting strong and fit is knowing how to use your workout time most effectively. Like exactly which exercises are worth your time, when to do them, and the number of sets and reps to get to your goals. You probably also tried other fitness apps and programs out there, only to feel like they weren't right for your needs. You want a program that has it all: strength, power, cardio, mobility, and recovery, all built right in without spending your whole life in the gym. And you want experienced coaches around to answer your questions, and a community at your back to help you stay motivated and inspired. Look, I've been coaching women for a long time now, and the truth is that you don't need another fad diet or complicated, time-consuming workout routine to support you as you age. You just need to train smarter with simple, progressive workouts and a plan that's designed for your body and your life, whether you're navigating motherhood, midlife, or menopause. And if this sounds like exactly what you've been missing, I invite you to join Stronger 365, a progressive strength, power, and conditioning training membership for women like you who are ready to stop winging it and take their training to the next level with more structure and support. And the best part? This program has 3 different options, so you can choose your own fitness adventure based on your goals, how much time you have to train, and what equipment you have, whether you've got access to a full gym or, like me, work out at home. And it's run by me, Allison Heilig, and my awesome team at Miles to Go Athletics. Head over to the show notes for all the details and to join our membership community. And as an FBG, your first 2 weeks are on me. And now, let's get back to the episode. So rest is fuel. I love this, for physical and mental performance. What do we know that rest gives us that improves our performance?
Well, the benefits are just so vast, aren't they? Everything from increasing our attentional capacity to improving the quality of our sleep. There is just an abundance of science that tells us we're overdoing it in life. And we've even got gadgets on our bodies telling us to stop. And yet, do you feel rested? Do you? I think a problem with a lot of the gadgets is that we have tech that tells us we need to recover, but it's not telling us what we should actually do, or helping us to actually develop the skill set that facilitates real rejuvenation. So I think what's more important is really a shift in mindset. It's really about cultivating your restorative mindset, which requires a real honest look at your rest or lack thereof, and thinking about how your behaviors are really impacting you and your performance. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about those impacts. What are the signs that we're not refueling?
I mean, everything just starts to break down, and everyone experiences fatigue in different ways. It might be a more subtle undercurrent of this frazzled, agitated feeling, or agitation, brain fog. A task that would usually take you 2 minutes is taking you like 20 plus. These are like signals, little signs.
You're running out of gas, rest
You are
gas, right? The ship is going down.
and physically it's like little aches and pains in our bodies that we ignore. Your body sends you all these very clear messages, and it's really your job to listen to that. And it's so often feels easier to just keep going and to just push through. But at a certain point, all of the props and coping mechanisms that hold you up and keep you going in front of those imbalances will break down. And then you'll have to deal with something more difficult: illness, injury, burnout.
I see it with my clients. I've seen it with myself. When things are breaking down, there's this assumption that you're the problem. Like you're just not able to rise to the occasion. You're not able to rally. You're not able to dig deep, give more. And that's not what your body's telling you. Your body is telling you, hey, I need a moment. I need a little bit more rest. The demands are higher than the resources I have available. I need to refuel. And sometimes it's really just about just reframing that feedback you're getting from your body. It's not telling you that you're not good enough or there's something fundamentally wrong with you. You're reading the signal wrong. And if you were to read it correctly, it would be that I need more resources. And in this situation, I need more rest. I need to walk away from this for a minute. Because what I've realized is there's moments when I'm sitting there staring at the screen and nothing is coming. And this should only take a minute for me to do this thing, but it's taking me, like you said, 20 plus minutes when my dogs want to go outside. And then I go outside with them and I come back and poof, there it is, right? Because I just stepped away from it for 5 minutes just to take my dogs outside. I started to realize that the signals are telling me I need to just step away for a minute. I need to give my head space. I need to stop staring at the screen. I need to stop beating up on myself.
Definitely. It's in these moments that I think the mantra really should be rest and start again, and let it be that simple.
Yeah, I love that. All right, so let's talk about your newest book. So I have it here. It is Move, Rest, Recover, Your Practical Guide to Balancing Mind and Body. I've gone through it. I love it because it offers a step-by-step process that guides the practice of rest, while also acknowledging along the way that there are very real obstacles that we all face that can prevent us from feeling like we can rest and relax. And your book basically outlines a 3-part journey. So just briefly, let's go through these pieces because I think this is a really interesting approach to rest and a very methodical approach to rest. And I really appreciated that about your book. So the first piece, and you mentioned this briefly earlier, was cultivate a restorative mindset. How our own thinking is getting in the way of rest. So let's talk about that piece of it.
Sure. So I really wanted to help people to answer for themselves, why is rest important? How do I know when to stop and rest? And when I stop, what should I do? So really cultivating a more restorative mindset is step one, really getting your head around why recovery matters. So I lay out in that section how recovery is important. It is not automatic and it's readily available because in my experience of coaching people for over 20 years, it's really starting with this foundation of knowledge and understanding that gives us the motivation to do something, to practice and to practice right. So that's really the starting point of this journey to creating a restorative practice that truly works for you. From there, it's about activating recovery, which is about what do I do? How do I transition from work to rest? And so I offer a variety of mental and physical practices that we can use, many of them in the moment. You don't need a yoga mat or a studio or fancy anything. Mental and physical practices that you can use to actually activate rest. Like, what does that feel like? What does rest even feel like? That it's a feeling that I think is a state rather that is foreign to many of us for good reason, because we're so busy. So some different things we can do to actually see what that feels like, because I think that it's in practicing and feeling the difference. Again, that gives us motivation to continue. And from there, once you've really started to create more of a restorative mindset, you've built a foundation of skills, tools, and techniques that you can use. Then how do you put it all together? How do you strengthen your practice? So in the ending section, it's all about really creating your practice. How do you take these skills and apply them for real every day? And again, I'm not talking about writing rest day in your calendar. It's about resting throughout your day, every day, in a way that fuels you. And I think of it like you want to have a set of things that you become familiar with, that you connect and resonate with. And I should say this is very, very unique and personal. There is no universal prescription for rest that best suits everyone, but finding those things that actually work for you in context of your real life and using them and gaining the reps and building equity with them to the point where it's like brushing your teeth. You wouldn't just not do it. You would feel dirty. You would not feel like, okay, right? You know, and not in a sort of autopilot way, just more in the sense that it's something that you just do. It's a natural, integrated part of your day. And when we start to make those recognitions and actually respond to them in the moment, that's when we've really started to develop a practice that's supporting us.
And I love that with your book, it is set up to be a workbook. Like, this is not just you read through and you're like, okay, that's great, but what do I do with that? There are activities, there are spaces for you to write, to journal, to try something and record your experience with it. So what I love about it is it's this workbook that is helping people build a rest toolkit. You can just reach in and grab the thing that you need, because I find that that is often such a big barrier when people learn to read the signals. Okay, I'm running out of gas. I'm running on fumes. This is not going to go anywhere good. If they don't already have things that they know are helpful, it can feel like they don't know what to do with that information or how to respond to it. So what I really love about the book, and it's not just more information being thrown at you, it's very experiential, and it's really helping you to build that toolkit. Because one of the best things that I've done for myself is put my stress management or rest toolkit on the wall in front of me here, so that whenever I'm sitting here and I'm having a moment of like, this is getting out of hand, I look up and there's 5 minutes or less. Here are some things that you can do to bring it down a notch. And having that toolkit right in front of me in the seat where I tend to experience the overwhelm has been completely transformational. Instead of like, I'm getting these signals and I don't know what to do with them, or I'm in that autopilot of, I just need to sit here and try harder to make this stuff come out, is that if you really take the time to try some things out, to experience them, to see what works for you, and then create this toolkit that is always available to you, it makes rest so much more accessible.
Absolutely. I love that, Allison. What a great idea to create that visual cue. Put up your go-tos on the wall. And as you practice, you start to find out, you discover what your must-haves are. And then you can lean into those in the moments when you need it. And taking that time, that's why I feel like rest is a power stance, really. I think it's all about embracing that it matters, resting when you can, where you are. It really comes back to letting go of the feeling that you don't have enough time or you need to contain a bigger restorative activity. Anything that you can do throughout your day will make a difference. And the more you give yourself the chance to practice that, the more you'll feel the difference. And that will benefit all aspects of your life and the people around you.
Yeah. And then you'll have those moments where if you forget to do those things, you will get further validation of the effectiveness of those activities because you're feeling the absence of them. Like, you forget to do them or you fall back into old patterns and you're like, you know what? Those things actually were helping.
Every now and again, I'll have a moment where I'll be like, why do I feel like this? You know, a little overwhelm creeps in or just feeling a little bit off the rails. I have not rested enough.
Yeah.
Like, one was, you know, there has not been enough space between things, haven't been transitions, like no wonder. And so having compassion for ourselves when we don't feel rested, I think is really important. Like, it's okay. Acknowledge where you're at and then respond accordingly. Yeah.
Love that. All right, Erin, this was amazing. Thanks so much for coming on. This was
Thank
so
you.
helpful and such a needed conversation at this time. Obviously, people can and should go buy your book, Move, Rest, Recover, Your Practical Guide to Balancing Mind and Body. We're going to link to that in the show notes so people can find it easy. You also have a Substack, Balance Practice, your weekly newsletter of tools, insights, and prompts to inspire and support balance. Tell me a bit about who that is for.
That is a space to catch your breath. Balance Practice, I offer a weekly yoga-inspired class. They are short, 5 to 20 minutes in that range, with the aim of being practical and accessible. And I also send out related writing, a lot of consideration of what practice can look like in different seasons and how we can meet ourselves and be well and feel balance right where we are. So that's a weekly resource for that.
Right. Yeah. And you're giving a free month of balance practice to our listeners through the link that we'll put in our show notes. That's awesome. I plan to take advantage of that. You also have a video platform and app called Athletes for Yoga. Tell me about that.
Athletes for Yoga offers a variety of contextual yoga solutions to solve imbalance in all different areas of the body, and also addresses different sports. There's a big yoga for runners library, which even includes things like marathon training plans. So that's another great resource if you're looking to plug in more tools specifically related to your sports training.
All right. And people can also find you on your website and Instagram, which we'll link to in the show notes. So lots of different places people can find you and your work. Erin, this was so great. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Allison.
And that's a wrap for this week's episode of the Fit Bottom Girls podcast. But don't worry, we're dropping new episodes every Thursday. In the meantime, head over to the show notes for all the links from today's episode, or go to fitbottomedgirls.com/podcast to catch up on past episodes. Thanks for being here. I'll see you next week.